Captain Sarah Chun adjusted the worn leather strap of her rifle as the transport shuttle descended through the crimson atmosphere of Kepler 442b. Around her, the other mercenaries checked their plasma rifles and energy weapons, their sleek designs humming with barely contained power. The soft blue glow of their charge indicators painted eerie shadows across their faces. "What's that antique supposed to be?" sneered Lieutenant Marcus Voss, pointing at Sarah's weapon. His Zarathian pulse rifle gleamed with fresh chrome plating, its targeting computer blinking with readiness indicators. Sarah glanced down at her rifle. The woodstock bore countless scratches and dents from decades of use. The metal barrel showed patches of careful maintenance where rust had been scrubbed away and treated. To anyone else, it looked like a museum piece that belonged in a display case, not on a battlefield. "Family heirloom," she replied quietly, running her thumb along the familiar grain of the walnut stock. Her grandfather had carried this same rifle through the Martian Rebellion. Her father had used it during the asteroid mining wars. Now it was her turn. The other mercenaries burst into laughter. Sergeant Torres, a Centaurian with cybernetic implants covering half his face, shook his head in disbelief. "You brought a chemical propellant weapon to fight the Kethvar Empire? Those things haven't been used in serious combat for 200 years. The briefing said we're facing their elite Crimson Guard," added Corporal Williams, her voice dripping with mockery. "These aren't backwater pirates, Chun. The Crimson Guard has personal energy shields, powered armor, and weapons that can punch through starship hulls. Your little pop gun won't even scratch their paint." Commander Harrison stepped forward from the cockpit area, his weathered face grim. "Listen up, people. The colony on Kepler 442b has been under siege for 3 weeks. The Kethvar have established a forward base in the northern mountains, and they're picking off supply convoys one by one. Our job is simple: eliminate their command post and break their siege." He activated a holographic display showing the mountainous terrain they'd be fighting in. Red markers indicated known enemy positions scattered across rocky peaks and narrow valleys. Intelligence suggests they have approximately 40 soldiers defending the base, including at least 1 full platoon of Crimson Guard elite troops. The mercenaries leaned forward, studying the tactical display. The base was positioned on high ground with excellent sight lines in all directions. Attacking it would mean crossing open terrain under heavy fire. "Their commander is Sub-Admiral Vrextich," Harrison continued. "He's never lost a ground engagement. The Kethvar consider him their finest tactical mind. He's turned that mountain base into a fortress that's already repelled 2 assault attempts by regular colonial forces." Sarah studied the terrain carefully, noting the elevation changes and possible approach routes. Her trained eye picked out details the others missed. Wind patterns indicated by vegetation growth, likely firing positions based on natural rock formations, and potential cover that might not show up clearly on the tactical display. "What's our equipment loadout?" asked Voss, still eyeing Sarah's rifle with amusement. Harrison gestured to the weapon racks mounted along the shuttle's walls. "Standard mercenary kit. Plasma rifles with extended charge packs, photon grenades, personal shield generators, and combat armor rated for small arms fire. Each team member gets 1 heavy weapon specialist loadout." The other mercenaries immediately began claiming the most advanced weapons. Torres grabbed a plasma cannon that required both hands to carry. Williams selected a photon launcher capable of punching holes through reinforced concrete. Voss chose a sniper rifle with smart ammunition that could track targets around corners. Sarah remained seated, her ancient rifle resting across her knees. She had packed her own equipment, a worn leather bandolier containing exactly 50 cartridges, each one carefully maintained and tested. The brass casings gleamed with fresh polish, and she had hand-loaded each round herself using techniques passed down through 3 generations. "Aren't you going to grab something more useful?" Torres asked, hefting his plasma cannon. "We've got enough firepower here to level a city block." Sarah shook her head. "This rifle has never let my family down. It won't start now." The laughter that followed was even louder than before. Several mercenaries made jokes about bringing primitive weapons to an advanced firefight. One suggested she might as well carry a sword and shield. "Listen, Chun," Commander Harrison said, his voice not entirely unsympathetic. "I respect family traditions, but this isn't a historical reenactment. The Kethvar Crimson Guard troops wear powered armor that can stop plasma bolts. Their personal shields can deflect energy weapons. Your grandfather's hunting rifle isn't going to penetrate their defenses. Sarah met his gaze steadily. With respect, Commander, my grandfather didn't use this for hunting. Neither did my father. Neither do I. The shuttle shuddered as atmospheric turbulence increased. Through the small windows, the mercenaries could see rocky mountains rising like jagged teeth from the planet's surface. Somewhere among those peaks, the Kethvar waited. Harrison moved to the communications console and activated the tactical frequency. Kepler Base, this is Raven Squadron approaching your position. Request immediate sitrep. The response came through heavy with static and the sound of distant explosions. Raven Squadron, this is Colonel Martinez. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. The Kethvar launched another probe attack 2 hours ago. We lost another supply convoy trying to reach the southern settlements. Understood, Colonel. What can you tell us about enemy disposition? They're dug in deep on Mount Stryker, approximately 12 kilometers north of the main colony. Long-range sensors indicate significant defensive installations, but we can't get close enough for detailed reconnaissance. Every time we send scouts up there, they disappear. Sarah listened to the exchange while checking her rifle one final time. She opened the bolt carefully, examining the chamber to ensure it was clean and properly aligned. The action worked smoothly despite the weapon's age, each component fitting together with the precision that only came from masterful craftsmanship and careful maintenance. Torres noticed her preparations and snorted. Still planning to take on alien super soldiers with that museum piece? The Kethvar have never faced anything like this rifle, Sarah replied calmly, closing the bolt with a soft click. Yeah, because nobody's been stupid enough to bring one to a real fight in the last century, Williams added. Sarah didn't respond to the mockery. Instead, she pulled out a small leather journal and began reviewing notes written in careful handwriting. The pages contained detailed information about ballistics, wind calculations, and range estimations. Some entries dated back decades, recorded by her father and grandfather during their own military service. Commander Harrison returned from the communications station looking troubled. Change of plans, people. The Kethvar just launched a major offensive against the colony's eastern perimeter. Colonial forces are fully committed to that battle, which means we're going in without backup. The mercenaries shifted uncomfortably. We'll drop here, in this valley about 5 kilometers south of the target. From there, we advance on foot through the mountain passes. Sarah studied the insertion point carefully. The valley provided decent concealment from aerial observation, but the approach to the enemy base would require crossing several open areas where they'd be exposed to long-range fire. What about air support? Torres asked. None available. The Colonial Air Force is committed to defending the main settlement. We're on our own until the eastern battle is resolved. The shuttle pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Commander, we're approaching the drop zone. You've got about 5 minutes to prep your gear. Harrison nodded and turned to address the team. Remember, our objective is to eliminate the Kethvar command post and break their siege capability. We go in fast, hit hard, and get out before they can organize a counterattack. The mercenaries began final equipment checks. Plasma rifles hummed as power cells were tested. Shield generators were activated and calibrated. Combat armor systems ran diagnostic routines. Sarah stood and slung her rifle across her shoulder, the familiar weight settling into place like an old friend. She checked that her bandolier was properly secured and that each cartridge was seated correctly in its loop. You know, Voss said, watching her preparations with amusement, when this goes badly, that antique isn't going to save you. Sarah looked at him with calm confidence. When this goes badly, this antique is going to save all of us. The shuttle touched down with a gentle bump, and the rear cargo door began to open with a hydraulic hiss. Beyond the opening, the alien landscape of Kepler, 442b stretched out under the crimson sky. Rocky terrain extended in all directions, broken by deep valleys and towering peaks. Commander Harrison checked his equipment one last time and then gestured toward the exit. Move out, people. Time to show the Kethvar what human determination looks like. The mercenaries filed out of the shuttle, their advanced weapons gleaming in the strange light of the alien sun. Sarah was the last to emerge, her ancient rifle seeming impossibly primitive against the backdrop of advanced military technology. As the shuttle lifted off behind them, leaving them alone on the hostile world, none of the mercenaries could have imagined that within hours they would be begging Sarah to explain how her grandfather's rifle had accomplished the impossible. The weapon they mocked as obsolete was about to remind the galaxy why Earth's children had earned their fearsome reputation among the stars. The march through the mountains took 3 hours, with the mercenaries moving carefully through rocky terrain that seemed designed to hide ambushes. The alien sun beat down mercilessly, and the thin atmosphere made every breath a struggle. Commander Harrison led them along what appeared to be an ancient animal trail, winding between massive boulders and steep cliff faces. Sarah moved with quiet confidence, her rifle held at ready position, while her eyes constantly scanned the surrounding terrain. Unlike the others who relied heavily on their electronic sensors and targeting systems, she used skills passed down through generations of human soldiers. She read the landscape like a book, noting wind patterns, shadows that might conceal enemies, and natural features that could provide cover or concealment. "Contact ahead," Torres whispered into his comm unit, his cybernetic implants detecting movement approximately 800 meters up the mountain slope. "I'm reading multiple heat signatures near that outcropping of red rock." Harrison immediately signaled for the team to take cover. The mercenaries quickly spread out among the available rocks and sparse vegetation, their weapons trained on the suspected enemy position. Through his high-tech scope, Voss could make out several figures moving among the rocks. "Definitely HFY. Looks like a patrol, maybe 6 or 7 soldiers. They haven't spotted us yet." The HFY were impressive specimens, even at this distance. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies were covered in natural armor, plating that resembled metallic scales. Their weapons were sleek energy rifles that could fire both plasma bolts and disruptor beams. Each soldier wore additional powered armor that enhanced their already formidable natural defenses. "What's the range?" Harrison asked quietly. "Just over 800 meters, Williams replied, checking her weapon's targeting computer. "That's pushing the effective range for most of our weapons, especially with this atmospheric distortion." Sarah remained silent, but her trained eye was already calculating distance, wind speed, and elevation differences. She estimated the range at approximately 820 meters, accounting for the slope of the mountain and atmospheric conditions that would affect her shot. "We could try to circle around them," Torres suggested. "Find another route to the base." Harrison shook his head. "That would add hours to our approach, and we don't know what other patrols might be out there. Besides, letting them report our presence would eliminate any chance of surprise when we reach the main target." The commander studied the enemy patrol through his binoculars. The HFY were moving with military precision, clearly experienced soldiers who knew their business. Their formation provided mutual support while covering all possible approach routes. Standard engagement protocol, Harrison decided. "We eliminate the patrol quickly and quietly, then continue to the primary objective." The mercenaries began preparing for the attack. Plasma rifles powered up with soft humming sounds as charge levels reached maximum. Targeting computers locked onto the distant enemy soldiers, calculating trajectories and compensation for atmospheric conditions. "This is going to be tricky," Voss muttered, adjusting his scope settings. 800 meters with energy weapons in this atmosphere. "I might be able to take down 2 or 3 before they reach cover." "My plasma cannon has the range," Torres added, "but it's going to announce our position to every HFY within 50 kilometers. Williams nodded grimly. "Same problem with the photon launcher. These weapons weren't designed for stealth operations." Sarah quietly chambered a round, the metallic click barely audible over the wind. She estimated wind speed at approximately 15 kilometers per hour, coming from the northeast. The uphill angle added complexity to her calculations, but she had made similar shots before. "Wait," Harrison said, noticing Sarah's preparations. "You're not seriously planning to engage at this range with that antique, are you?" 800 meters is well within this rifle's effective range, Sarah replied calmly, settling into a stable shooting position behind a large boulder. "Give me 30 seconds. The other mercenaries exchanged skeptical glances. Energy weapons had effective ranges measured in kilometers under ideal conditions, but even they struggled with accuracy at 800 meters in atmospheric conditions. A chemical propellant weapon from 2 centuries ago seemed completely inadequate for the task. Chun, be realistic, Voss said. Even if you could hit something at that distance, your bullets won't penetrate Kethvar armor. You'd just be wasting ammunition and giving away our position. Sarah ignored the commentary and focused on her target selection. The patrol leader was clearly identifiable by his more elaborate armor and the way other soldiers deferred to his positioning. He stood slightly apart from the main group, using a piece of advanced surveillance equipment to scan the valley below. She adjusted her rifle's sights, compensating for the distance and environmental factors. The weapon had no electronic assistance, no computer calculations, no targeting lasers. Everything depended on her training, her experience, and knowledge passed down through 3 generations of soldiers who had faced impossible odds with similar weapons. The lead Kethvar is using some kind of scanner, Harrison observed. If he detects us, the whole patrol will know our exact position. 30 seconds, Sarah repeated, her voice completely calm as she controlled her breathing. The other mercenaries watched with a mixture of fascination and disbelief as Sarah settled into her shooting position. She seemed to become one with the rifle, her body naturally aligning with the weapon in a way that suggested years of intensive training. Torres shook his head. This is insane. We should be coordinating a proper assault with all available firepower. The moment we open fire with energy weapons, every enemy sensor within 20 kilometers will triangulate our position, Sarah said without taking her eye from the rifle scope. This patrol will call for reinforcements, and we'll be fighting the entire Kethvar force before we reach the primary objective. She had selected her target and was now making final adjustments for windage and elevation. The Kethvar patrol leader remained focused on his scanning equipment, unaware that death was taking aim from nearly a kilometer away. Even if you somehow hit him, Williams argued, the noise will alert the other patrol members. We'll still end up in a firefight. Sarah smiled slightly. The supersonic crack of the bullet will reach them before the muzzle blast. By the time they hear the shot, their leader will be down and already be engaging secondary targets. Commander Harrison found himself genuinely curious despite his skepticism. You really think you can eliminate multiple targets at this range? I know I can, Sarah replied with quiet confidence. This rifle has never missed when it mattered. The wind shifted slightly, and Sarah made a minor adjustment to compensate. Her breathing slowed to a steady rhythm as she entered the focused state that her father had taught her. In this condition, everything else faded away except the target and the rifle. Voss was studying the enemy patrol through his advanced scope. The leader just moved behind that large rock. You've lost your shot. Sarah remained perfectly still, her rifle trained on the area where the target had disappeared. He'll emerge in approximately 10 seconds. Patrol leaders always verify their scanner readings with visual confirmation. The other mercenaries watched in fascination as Sarah seemed to predict the enemy's behavior. True to her prediction, the Kethvar leader stepped out from behind the rock exactly when she had anticipated, raising a pair of electronic binoculars to scan the valley below. Taking the shot, Sarah whispered. The rifle fired with a sharp crack that echoed across the mountain landscape. The sound was different from the energy weapons the mercenaries were accustomed to. More primitive, more visceral, but somehow more final. 820 meters away, the Kethvar patrol leader jerked backward as the bullet struck him in the center of his chest. His elaborate armor, designed to deflect energy beams and plasma bolts, proved completely ineffective against the solid projectile. The copper-jacketed lead bullet punched through both the powered armor and his natural protective scales before devastating his internal organs. The patrol leader collapsed immediately, his scanner and binoculars clattering down the mountainside. The remaining Kethvar soldiers reacted with trained precision, immediately seeking cover while trying to locate the source of the attack. Their energy weapons swept across the valley below, but they were searching for the distinctive energy signatures of modern weapons. Sarah had already chambered her second round and was tracking her next target. A Kethvar soldier had taken position behind a boulder, but part of his helmet remained visible as he attempted to coordinate with his remaining squad members. The second shot followed less than 5 seconds after the first. Another crack echoed across the mountains as the bullet found its mark. The Kethvar soldier spun and fell, his helmet shattered by the impact. Impossible, Torres breathed, staring through his own scope at the distant target area. She actually hit them. The remaining 5 Kethvar soldiers were now in full combat mode, but they still couldn't identify the source of the attacks. Their sensors were calibrated to detect energy weapons, plasma signatures, and other advanced military technologies. A primitive chemical propellant weapon was completely outside their experience. Sarah tracked her third target, a soldier who was attempting to use a communications device to call for backup. The range was slightly longer now as the patrol spread out seeking cover, but she compensated smoothly for the additional distance. The third shot silenced the communicator permanently. 3 down, Sarah reported calmly, already chambering her 4th round. Remaining targets are seeking cover behind the rock formation at bearing 275. Commander Harrison was staring at her in amazement. How are you doing this? That range, in these conditions with iron sights. My grandfather faced Martian rebels who had better equipment and superior numbers, Sarah replied, tracking another target. My father fought asteroid miners who thought their environment suits made them invincible. The principles are the same. Find a target, control your breathing, squeeze the trigger smoothly. The 4th shot took down another Kethvar soldier who had attempted to change position. The remaining 2 aliens were now pinned behind cover, unable to advance or retreat without exposing themselves to the deadly accurate fire. Williams was checking her advanced targeting computer, trying to understand what she was witnessing. The ballistic calculations for those shots should be impossible without computer assistance. Wind compensation alone at that range. Computers can calculate, Sarah said, preparing for her 5th shot. But they can't read terrain the way a human can. They can't predict enemy behavior or adapt to changing conditions in real time. One of the remaining Kethvar soldiers made the mistake of exposing his position while trying to get a clear shot at what he thought was the source of the attacks. Sarah's 5th round ended his participation in the battle. The last surviving patrol member, realizing that his entire squad had been eliminated by an invisible enemy, attempted to retreat toward the main base. He moved from cover to cover, using proper tactical movement techniques. Sarah tracked him patiently, waiting for the right moment. When he was forced across a small, open area between rock formations, she took her 6th and final shot of the engagement. Silence fell across the mountain battlefield. Target down, Sarah reported, safing her rifle and checking her remaining ammunition. Patrol eliminated. 6 rounds fired, 6 confirmed kills. The other mercenaries stared at her in stunned silence. They had just witnessed something that shouldn't have been possible with current military technology, let alone with a weapon that belonged in a museum. Commander Harrison was the first to speak. "Chen, what the hell was that?" Sarah stood up from her shooting position, slinging her rifle across her shoulder with practiced ease. "That was precision marksmanship, Commander. Something humans have been perfecting for centuries." Torres was still staring at the distant target area through his scope. "I can barely see those bodies with advanced optics, and you put bullets into them with iron sights." "The Kethvar never expected to face this kind of weapon," Sarah explained, beginning to move toward the patrol area. "Their armor and sensors are designed to counter energy weapons. They have no defense against kinetic projectiles traveling at supersonic speeds." Voss shook his head in amazement. "But the accuracy, the range, how did you make those calculations without computer assistance?" Sarah smiled as she checked her equipment. "My family has been making those calculations for 300 years. Some knowledge doesn't need computers." As they approached the eliminated patrol, the mercenaries could see the devastating effectiveness of Sarah's shooting. Each Kethvar soldier had been hit precisely where their armor was weakest, and the damage from the bullets was far more severe than they had expected. "We need to reach the main base before they realize this patrol isn't reporting in," Harrison said, but his tone toward Sarah had changed completely. The mocking disbelief had been replaced by genuine respect. Sarah nodded, already planning their next move. "The base commander will expect a patrol report within the hour. When it doesn't come, he'll send out search teams." What none of them yet realized was that the main Kethvar base held an entire platoon of their elite Crimson Guard, 40 of the most dangerous soldiers in the alien empire. And Sarah Chun still had 44 rounds in her ammunition supply. The real test was still ahead of them. The Kethvar command base appeared ahead of them like a metallic growth on the mountainside. Built into the natural rock formations, it combined alien architecture with defensive engineering that had proven nearly impregnable to previous assault attempts. Energy barrier generators created shimmering fields of protection around key installations, while automated defense turrets tracked constantly across potential approach routes. Commander Harrison crouched behind a rocky outcropping, studying the base through his tactical binoculars. Intelligence was wrong about the defensive setup. Those aren't standard fortifications. The base sprawled across 3 separate levels carved into the mountain face. The lowest level housed what appeared to be vehicle storage and supply areas. The middle level contained the main defensive positions, bristling with heavy weapons and protected by overlapping energy shields. The upper level, built into the peak itself, housed the command center and communication arrays. I count at least 30 visible defensive positions, Torres reported, his cybernetic implants analyzing the tactical situation. Each one appears to be manned by multiple soldiers. Williams nodded grimly. Those energy barriers are military-grade. Our plasma weapons might eventually burn through them, but it would take sustained fire and give the defenders plenty of time to respond. Sarah examined the base through her rifle scope, but she was looking at different details than the others. While they focused on the technological defenses, she studied sightlines, elevation angles, and natural features that might provide concealment or cover. Her grandfather had taught her that every fortress had weaknesses that couldn't be eliminated by technology alone. The command center has an observation deck on the eastern face, she noted quietly. Whoever's running this operation will want visual confirmation of any attack, not just sensor data. Commander Harrison glanced at her with new respect. You think their commander will expose himself during a battle? Kethvar tactical doctrine emphasizes personal leadership, Sarah replied. Their officers lead from positions where they can directly observe and control the battle. It's a cultural thing. They consider remote command to be cowardly. Voss was still trying to process what he had witnessed earlier. And about those shots you made. I've run the ballistic calculations through my combat computer 3 times. The probability matrices say what you did was statistically impossible. Sarah checked her ammunition count methodically. 44 rounds remained in her bandolier, each one carefully maintained and ready for use. Statistics assume average performance under standard conditions. Human potential exceeds both when it matters most. A movement detector chimed softly on Torres's equipment. We've got company. 2 search teams moving up from the base, probably looking for that missing patrol. Through their scopes, the mercenaries could see Kethvar soldiers advancing through the lower mountain approaches. These weren't regular troops. Their armor was more elaborate, their weapons more advanced, and their movement more coordinated. Crimson Guard, Harrison identified grimly. Elite units. Each one of those soldiers is worth 5 regular troops. The first search team consisted of 6 Crimson Guard soldiers moving in perfect tactical formation. Their powered armor was deep red with gold trim, and their weapons were the most advanced energy rifles in the Kethvar arsenal. Personal shield generators created faint distortions around each soldier, protection that could deflect most small arms fire. They're spread out across a wide front, Williams observed. Too far apart for area effect weapons to be efficient. Sarah was already settling into a shooting position, her rifle supported by a natural rest in the rocks. Range to lead element is approximately 400 meters. Wind is negligible at this distance. The second search team was moving up a parallel route about 300 meters to the east. If both teams reached the area where the patrol had been eliminated, they would quickly determine that the missing soldiers had been killed by an unknown enemy force. We could try to avoid them, Torres suggested. Circle around and approach the base from another direction. Harrison shook his head. They'll find the patrol bodies eventually, and then the entire base will go on high alert. Our only chance is to eliminate these search teams and continue with the original plan. Engaging Crimson Guard at this range with energy weapons will definitely alert the main base, Williams pointed out. The moment we open fire, every sensor in the area will detect our weapon signatures. Sarah chambered around quietly. Give me 2 minutes. I can eliminate the first team before they realize they're under attack. Voss stared at her in disbelief. You want to take on Crimson Guard elites with that rifle? Their personal shields can stop plasma bolts. Plasma bolts are energy, Sarah replied calmly. Bullets are matter. Their shields aren't designed to stop solid projectiles traveling at 800 meters per second. She had selected her first target, the team leader, identifiable by his more elaborate armor and the way he directed the other soldiers' movements. He was maintaining position in the center of the formation, using hand signals to coordinate the search pattern. The range was shorter than her previous engagement, but the targets were more heavily armored and alert for possible threats. Sarah compensated for the different conditions, adjusting her aim point to account for the angle and the target's movement pattern. Taking the shot, she whispered. The rifle cracked, and 400 meters away, the Crimson Guard team leader jerked backward as the bullet punched through his shield generator and armor plating. The advanced personal protection system that could deflect energy weapons proved useless against the kinetic impact of a solid projectile. The remaining 5 Crimson Guard soldiers reacted instantly, their training taking over as they sought cover and attempted to locate the source of the attack. But, like the patrol before them, they were scanning for energy weapon signatures that didn't exist. Sarah's second shot took down the team's heavy weapons specialist before he could bring his plasma cannon to bear. The bullet struck him in the neck joint where his armor sections connected, a weakness that required precise marksmanship to exploit. 2 down, she reported, already tracking her third target. The surviving Crimson Guard soldiers were now attempting to establish defensive positions among the available rocks and sparse vegetation. Their advanced combat training was evident in their movement and coordination, but they were fighting an enemy they couldn't locate or understand. Sarah's third and fourth shots followed in rapid succession, taking advantage of momentary exposures as the soldiers tried to maneuver. Each bullet found its mark with devastating precision, punching through armor that had been designed to withstand the most advanced energy weapons in known space. The last Crimson Guard soldier realized that his entire team was being systematically eliminated by an invisible enemy. He activated his emergency beacon and attempted to withdraw toward the main base while calling for immediate backup. Sarah's 5th shot ended his retreat permanently. First team eliminated, she reported, checking her remaining ammunition. 39 rounds remaining. Torres was staring at the distant battlefield through his scope, watching the bodies of some of the galaxy's most elite soldiers scattered across the mountainside. This is impossible. Crimson Guard troops are supposed to be nearly invincible in individual combat. They are invincible against the weapons they were designed to face, Sarah corrected. But every defense has vulnerabilities. The second search team had heard the emergency beacon from their sister unit and was now moving rapidly toward the sound of the fighting. These 6 Crimson Guard soldiers were approaching with full combat awareness, their weapons ready and their shields at maximum power. Williams checked her tactical display. The second team is moving fast. They'll be in visual range of the first team's position within minutes. Range to second team is 520 meters and increasing, Sarah calculated, settling back into her shooting position. They're moving upslope at an angle that provides good deflection for targeting calculations. Commander Harrison was beginning to understand that he was witnessing something unprecedented in modern warfare. Chun, how many of these soldiers can you realistically engage before they locate our position? Sarah studied the approaching enemy through her scope. All of them, if my ammunition holds out and they don't change their tactical approach. The second Crimson Guard team was moving in a modified wedge formation, with their leader slightly ahead and the other 5 soldiers providing overlapping fields of fire. Their approach was textbook perfect for dealing with conventional threats, but it assumed they were facing an enemy with technological weapons and conventional limitations. Lead target is approximately 550 meters, Sarah noted, adjusting her scope for the increased distance. Wind is still negligible, but the upslope angle requires compensation. Her 6th shot of the engagement took down the second team's leader before his soldiers even realized they were under attack. The bullet traveled the distance in less than a second, striking with enough force to penetrate both his personal shield and advanced armor plating. The remaining 5 Crimson Guard soldiers immediately went aground, but they were now caught in the open on a mountainside with limited cover. Sarah began systematically engaging them, using her superior position and the inherent advantages of an undetectable weapon system. Her seventh and eighth shots eliminated two more soldiers who had attempted to establish covering positions behind inadequate rocky cover. The kinetic energy of her bullets was sufficient to penetrate their protection and cause massive internal damage. "This is beyond anything I've ever seen," Voss muttered, watching through a scope as some of the galaxy's most feared warriors were picked off one by an invisible enemy. "She's fighting a different kind of war than the rest of us." The surviving 3 Crimson Guard soldiers were now fully aware that they were facing an unprecedented threat, but they still couldn't locate the source of the attacks. Their sensors detected no energy signatures, no heat blooms, no electromagnetic emissions that would indicate enemy weapons. Sarah's 9th shot caught one of the soldiers as he attempted to move between cover positions. The bullet struck him center mass, and the hydrostatic shock from the impact was sufficient to incapacitate him despite his protective armor. 2 Crimson Guard soldiers remained from the second search team, and they were now attempting to withdraw while calling for massive reinforcement from the main base. Every alarm in the command center would be sounding as the elite troops reported contact with an unknown enemy using unidentified weapons. Sarah's 10th shot eliminated one of the retreating soldiers at a range of over 600 meters as he attempted to reach safety behind a large boulder. The remaining Crimson Guard soldier abandoned any attempt at tactical movement and simply ran for the base as fast as his powered armor would allow. "Last target is moving at maximum speed toward the main base," Williams reported. "Range is increasing rapidly." Sarah tracked the fleeing soldier carefully, compensating for his movement and the increasing distance. This was one of the most difficult shots she had attempted, a rapidly moving target at extreme range, with the added pressure of knowing that if he escaped, the entire enemy force would be alerted to their presence. Her 11th shot ended the threat at a range of nearly 700 meters. "Both search teams eliminated," Sarah reported calmly. 11 rounds fired, 11 confirmed kills, 28 rounds remaining. The mercenaries stared at her in absolute silence. They had just watched a single human soldier eliminate 12 of the galaxy's most elite warriors using a weapon that their great-grandfathers might have carried into battle. Commander Harrison found his voice first. "Chun, what you just did, military historians are going to study this engagement for centuries." Sarah stood up from her shooting position, checking her equipment methodically. "We need to move quickly now. When those soldiers fail to report in, the base commander will realize he's facing something outside his experience." Torres was shaking his head in amazement. 12 Crimson Guard soldiers, eliminated by one person with an ancient weapon. "I still can't believe what I just saw." "The hardest part is still ahead," Sarah replied, looking up at the main base complex. "That fortress contains an entire platoon of Crimson Guard, plus supporting troops and defensive systems. And now they know we're here." Williams checked her tactical display as alarm signals began emanating from the enemy base. Every sensor in that installation just went to maximum alert status. "They're preparing for a full-scale assault." Sarah nodded grimly. "Sub-Admiral Vrex TH has never lost a ground engagement, and he's not planning to start today. He'll throw everything he has at us." What none of them realized was that the legendary Kethvar commander was about to face his greatest challenge. A human warrior who fought by rules that hadn't been used in serious military operations for over 2 centuries. And Sarah Chund still had more than enough ammunition to teach the galaxy why Earth's children were feared throughout the stars. The real battle was about to begin. Sub-Admiral Vrex TH stood on the observation deck of his command center, his scaled hands gripping the railing as he studied the mountainside where 2 of his elite search teams had been systematically annihilated. In 3 decades of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. 12 Crimson Guard soldiers, the finest warriors in the Kethvar Empire, eliminated without a single energy weapon discharge being detected. "Analysis complete, Sub-Admiral," his intelligence officer reported. "No plasma signatures, no photon emissions, no electromagnetic disturbances. Whatever weapon system eliminated our soldiers is completely outside our technological understanding." Vrex TH's 4 eyes narrowed as he considered the implications. "Show me the tactical display." The holographic projection revealed the locations where his soldiers had fallen. Each position was marked with precise coordinates and estimated times of death. The pattern that emerged defied conventional military logic. Single shots to each target, the intelligence officer continued. No wasted ammunition, no missed opportunities. Whoever did this has precision capabilities that exceed our best sniper systems. Impossible, growled Captain Thekvar, the base's defensive coordinator. No known technology can achieve this level of accuracy at these ranges without detectable energy signatures. Rex TH studied the data more carefully. Unless we're not dealing with technology, we understand. He turned to address his staff officers. Prepare all defensive systems for immediate activation. Deploy the entire Crimson Guard platoon to defensive positions. This unknown enemy is clearly advancing on our position. Across the mountainside, Sarah Chun was leading the mercenary team through a careful approach toward the base. She had identified a route that would bring them within effective range while minimizing their exposure to the automated defense systems. The base is fully alerted now, Commander Harrison observed, watching energy barriers strengthen around the installation. Every weapon system they have is powered up and ready. Torres was monitoring enemy communications through his electronic warfare equipment. I'm picking up massive activity on their tactical frequencies. They're coordinating defensive positions across the entire complex. How many soldiers are we looking at? Williams asked, checking her own weapon systems. Sarah studied the base through her rifle scope, counting muzzle flashes and movement patterns as the defenders took their positions. I estimate 38 Crimson Guard soldiers, plus supporting personnel. They're deploying across all 3 levels of the installation. Voss shook his head in disbelief. 38 Crimson Guard elites behind energy barriers with overlapping fields of fire and automated weapon support. This is suicide. Not if we do this correctly, Sarah replied calmly. She had been studying the defensive deployment, noting patterns, and identifying key personnel. Their deployment follows standard Kethvar doctrine. Predictable. Commander Harrison looked at her with growing respect and concern. Chun, what you did with those search teams was remarkable, but this is different. You're talking about assaulting a fortified position held by the best soldiers in their military. Sarah adjusted her rifle slings and checked her remaining ammunition. 28 rounds remained, each one carefully maintained and ready for the engagement ahead. My grandfather took a fortified position on Mars with half this many rounds and worse odds. She pointed toward the upper level of the base, where the command center's observation deck was clearly visible. Sub-Admiral Vrex TH will be up there, directing the defense personally. Kethvar commanders always lead from where they can see the entire battlefield. You can't seriously be thinking of taking a shot at that range, Torres protested. The command center is over a kilometer away, uphill, with energy barriers between here and there. Sarah was already calculating the ballistics for such a shot. Range approximately 1,200 meters, significant elevation difference, unknown wind conditions at the target area, and the added complexity of energy barriers that might deflect a projectile. The barriers are designed to stop energy weapons, she explained. Solid projectiles will pass through with minimal deflection, especially at high velocity. Williams was monitoring the enemy defensive preparations. They're setting up interlocking fields of fire across every possible approach route. Even if we somehow penetrate their outer defenses, they'll have multiple fallback positions. Sarah nodded, studying the defensive deployment carefully. Standard defensive doctrine. Layered protection with mutually supporting positions. But it assumes they're facing an enemy using conventional tactics and weapons. She had identified the key to breaking the Kethvar defense, their command and control structure. Remove the leadership, disrupt their coordination, and even elite soldiers would struggle to maintain effective defensive operations. Here's what we're going to do, Sarah said, settling into a concealed position with excellent sight lines to the base. I'm going to eliminate their command structure and disrupt their defensive coordination. When their lines start to collapse, you move in with conventional weapons and finish the job. Commander Harrison stared at her. You're planning to take on the entire Crimson Guard platoon by yourself? I'm planning to use the one advantage we have that they can't counter, Sarah corrected. They've never faced this type of weapon before, and their entire defensive strategy is based on assumptions that don't apply to kinetic projectiles. Through her scope, Sarah could see Sub-Admiral Vrex TH on the observation deck, directing his soldiers' deployment with precise hand signals. He was easily identifiable by his elaborate command armor and the deference shown by surrounding personnel. Range to target, approximately 1,200 meters. Elevation difference, roughly 300 meters. Wind conditions, variable and difficult to assess at the target location. But the target was stationary, clearly visible, and completely unaware that death was taking aim from nearly 1.5 kilometers away. "Taking the command shot," Sarah announced quietly. The other mercenaries watched in fascination as she made minute adjustments to her rifle's position. Without computer assistance or electronic targeting aids, she was calculating one of the most difficult shots imaginable, using only her training, experience, and instincts passed down through generations. Her rifle cracked, and the bullet began its supersonic journey across the mountain battlefield. For nearly 2 seconds, it traveled through the thin atmosphere, following a trajectory that Sarah had calculated purely through human skill and knowledge. 1,200 meters away, Sub-Admiral Vrex TH was pointing toward a defensive position that needed reinforcement when a bullet struck him center mass. His advanced command armor, designed to protect against the most sophisticated energy weapons in known space, provided no defense against the kinetic impact of a solid projectile. The legendary HFY commander collapsed immediately, his body armor shattered, and his command of the battle permanently ended. "Target down," Sarah reported, already chambering her second round. Command structure disrupted. The effect on the HFY defenders was immediate and dramatic. Soldiers who had been moving with perfect coordination suddenly hesitated, unsure of their orders. Communications channels erupted with confusion as subordinate officers attempted to determine what had happened to their commander. Sarah was already engaging secondary targets. The senior officers were trying to restore command and control to the defensive operation. Her second shot eliminated the base's tactical coordinator at a range of just over 1,000 meters. Her third shot took down the defensive system's controller who was attempting to redirect automated weapons. "This is impossible," Voss breathed, watching through his scope as the enemy command structure disintegrated under Sarah's methodical fire. "She's conducting precision strikes at ranges that should require artillery support." Captain Fekvar had taken over command of the HFY defenders, but he was struggling to coordinate a defense against an enemy he couldn't locate or understand. His soldiers were reporting that their comrades were being eliminated by an invisible force that left no detectable signatures. Sarah's fourth shot eliminated Fekvar himself as he attempted to use the communication array to call for orbital support. With their primary and secondary commanders dead, the Crimson Guard soldiers were now fighting as individual units without overall coordination. "Command structure is broken," Sarah reported, beginning engagement of primary defensive positions. She had identified the key strong points that anchored the HFY defensive line. Eliminate the soldiers manning these positions, and the entire defense would collapse into isolated pockets that could be defeated in detail. Her fifth and sixth shots targeted the crew of a heavy plasma cannon that commanded the main approach to the base. The weapon fell silent as its operators were eliminated by precise fire from an enemy they never saw. "Defensive coordination is collapsing," Torres reported, monitoring enemy communications. "They're requesting immediate reinforcements from orbit, but they can't give coordinates for the threat they're facing." Sarah continued her systematic destruction of the HFY defense. Her seventh, eighth, and ninth shots eliminated key personnel who were attempting to maintain communication between isolated defensive positions. Each round was carefully aimed and precisely delivered, removing crucial elements of the enemy's ability to coordinate resistance. "The energy barriers are still active," Williams observed, "but they're not being used effectively. The defenders don't understand what they're protecting against." Sarah's 10th shot took down the soldier operating the main shield generator controls. Without proper management, the energy barriers began flickering as their power distribution systems struggled to maintain stability. By her 15th shot, the outer defensive perimeter had collapsed entirely. Crimson Guard soldiers were abandoning their positions and falling back to the middle level of the installation, but they were moving without coordination or clear orders. "Now," Sarah said, standing up from her shooting position, "move in with conventional weapons and finish them." The other mercenaries advanced on the base, their plasma rifles and energy weapons finally finding targets that weren't protected by coordinated defenses. The remaining HFY soldiers fought with individual skill and determination, but they could no longer function as an effective military unit. Torres's plasma cannon swept away the last automated defense turret. Williams's photon launcher eliminated a group of soldiers who had attempted to establish a fallback position. Voss used his sniper rifle to provide overwatch as they advanced through the installation. Sarah continued to provide precision fire support, her remaining shots eliminating threats that her teammates couldn't engage safely. Her 16th shot took down a soldier who had been attempting to activate a self-destruct system. Her 17th eliminated a sniper who had Harrison pinned down behind inadequate cover. The battle for the middle level lasted less than 10 minutes. Without effective leadership or coordination, even the legendary Crimson Guard could not maintain a defense against a properly coordinated assault. When they reached the command level, they found it abandoned except for technical personnel who surrendered immediately. The communication arrays that had been coordinating the siege of the colony were silent, their operators eliminated by Sarah's precise fire. Commander Harrison stood on the observation deck where Sub-Admiral Vrex TH had fallen, looking out over the mountainside battlefield. Chin, what just happened here is going to change military thinking throughout the galaxy. Sarah was conducting a final count of her ammunition expenditure. 22 rounds fired. Complete elimination of enemy command structure and defensive coordination. Mission accomplished. Torres was staring at her with something approaching awe. You took down an entire platoon of Crimson Guard elites with a weapon that's older than some of the planets in this system. The weapon isn't what matters, Sarah replied, carefully safing her rifle. It's the soldier who carries it. Human soldiers have been winning impossible battles for thousands of years, using whatever tools were available. Voss was running calculations on his tactical computer. The statistical probability of what you just accomplished is so low that my system classifies it as impossible. Sarah smiled, slinging her ancient rifle across her shoulder. Statistics are for weapons and equipment. Humans transcend statistics when lives are on the line. Williams activated the communication array to contact the colonial forces. Kepler Base, this is Raven Squadron. The HFY siege force has been eliminated. Repeat, the enemy base has been destroyed and their siege capability neutralized. The response was immediate and filled with disbelief. Raven Squadron, confirm your status. Did you say the siege has been broken? Confirmed, Kepler Base. The HFY command structure has been completely eliminated. Their forces are no longer operational. As they prepared to evacuate the captured base, the mercenaries found themselves looking at Sarah with entirely new understanding. They had witnessed something that would be discussed in military academies for generations, a demonstration of why humans had earned their fearsome reputation among the stars. Chun, Commander Harrison said finally, remind me never to laugh at family traditions again. Sarah checked her rifle one final time before beginning the journey back to their extraction point. This rifle has been protecting my family for 3 centuries. Today, it protected all of us. The ancient Earth weapon that they had mocked as obsolete had just reminded the galaxy that human warriors didn't need the most advanced technology to be the most dangerous fighters in known space. Sometimes, the old ways were still the best ways. And somewhere among the stars, other alien civilizations would soon learn why it was never wise to underestimate a human soldier, regardless of what weapon they carried. The legend of the ancient Earth rifle and the woman who used it to eliminate an entire Crimson Guard platoon would spread throughout the galaxy, serving as a reminder that humans fought wars differently than everyone else. They fought with skill, determination, and a refusal to accept defeat that transcended any technological advantage their enemies might possess. That was the human way, and it was why the children of Earth were respected and feared wherever humans traveled among the stars.